Have you ever been told to leave your own property? Yeah, I didn't think it could happen either until it did. Picture this: a spoiled 19-year-old standing in front of me at the community pool yelling that I didn't belong there, on a pool that was built on my land. He didn't know I was the county sheriff and that his mom, the almighty HOA president, had just picked a fight she couldn't win. I've lived in this neighborhood outside Austin, Texas for about 5 years. It's one of those places that looks like a postcard: neatly trimmed lawns, matching mailboxes, smiling neighbors who wave as they drive by in their SUVs. But underneath that perfect surface, power-hungry board members and petty politics that could rival any reality TV show. The HOA, or Homeowners Association, like to think they ran everything. And at the top of that pyramid sat Karen Dalton, president, self-proclaimed queen, and nightmare in pastel sweaters. I'd bought my house right next to the community pool. Ironically, part of that pool actually sits across my property line by about 12 feet. I knew it when I bought the place, but I never made a fuss. I figured, hey, it makes the neighborhood nicer. Why stir up trouble? I just wanted peace. My job as a county sheriff already gives me enough chaos. When I come home, I want quiet, not confrontation. That peace lasted until the day Karen's son Brandon decided to play security guard. It was a quiet Sunday afternoon, the kind where the sun hits just right and you finally get a break from the noise of the world. I was off duty, wearing swim trunks and sunglasses, sipping a cold lemonade by the pool. Then out of nowhere, I hear this voice, sharp, entitled, and dripping with attitude. "Hey, you can't be here." I look up and there he is. Brandon Dalton. 19, messy blonde hair, loud car, louder mouth. He's standing there with his phone out like he's about to film me for breaking some imaginary law. "This pool's for HOA members only," he says. "My mom runs it and she told me to kick out non-members." I blinked. "Excuse me." He crosses his arms. "You heard me. You need to leave." I laughed, thinking he was joking. "Brandon." "I live right there," I said, pointing at my backyard fence just a few feet away. "Been here since before you graduated high school." He smirked, that smug teenage look only possible when someone's never worked a real day in their life. "Doesn't matter. Mom said if you don't pay full HOA fees, you're not allowed in." Thing is, I did pay. In fact, I'd paid extra once to help fund that same pool's renovation. But trying to explain logic to someone like Brandon was like teaching a goldfish to drive. Pointless. I stood up, keeping calm. "You might want to check your facts before you start throwing people out." "Whatever, man. I'm calling security," he snapped. 15 minutes later, security arrived in the form of Karen herself. Sun visor, clipboard, fake smile, the whole HOA uniform. She walked up like she was about to fire an employee. "Officer Mitchell," she said sweetly, "we've had complaints about unauthorized pool usage." I raised an eyebrow. "Unauthorized? I'm on the property deed, Karen. Half this pool sits on my land." She froze for half a second before faking a laugh. "That's not possible. The HOA built this entire pool." "Oh, I know," I said, smiling. "But when the developers drew up the lots, they overlapped mine by 12 feet. You've been using that space rent-free for years." Her smile twitched. "Well, that doesn't give you access privileges." "HOA rules." "Karen," I said, keeping my voice even, "you might want to slow down before quoting HOA rules to a county sheriff who enforces actual laws." That wiped the smirk off both their faces. Brandon shuffled uncomfortably behind her but still tried to look tough. "Still doesn't mean you can come here whenever you want," he muttered. "Technically, I said you're swimming on my property." Karen turned beet red. "I'll have to check that." "Please do," I replied calmly. "Take your time. I'll wait." That's when I realized this wasn't about rules or property lines. This was about ego. And Karen. She didn't lose well. Over the next week, I saw her pacing around the pool with a measuring tape, muttering under her breath. One afternoon, she even brought a contractor. I knew exactly what she'd find. But instead of admitting the mistake, a letter showed up in my mailbox a few days later. It read, "Notice of trespass. Pool access revoked." I laughed so hard I nearly spilled my coffee. Karen had officially banned me from my own property. The letter even threatened fines and removal if I entered HOA property again. That's when I knew she'd just declared war. So I decided to have a little fun. That weekend I invited a few off-duty deputies over for a barbecue. We set up the grill. Right on that disputed 12-foot strip, the part of the pool deck that technically belonged to me. I wanted Karen to see it. Sure enough, it didn't take long. She came storming over, visor bouncing, clipboard shaking. "What do you think you're doing?" she barked. I flipped a burger. "Having a cookout," I said. "On my land. You're being unreasonable." I smiled. "Actually, I've been generous. I could have fenced this off years ago. But I didn't until your son decided to play security guard." Brandon appeared behind her, arms crossed. "You're not above the rules, man." I looked him dead in the eye. "You're right. I'm not above the rules. I'm the one who enforces them." For the first time, he shut up. Karen's face twisted in anger. "This isn't over." "I know," I said calmly. "It's just getting started." The next morning, I drove to the county records office. I already knew the layout, but I wanted the official proof. Sure enough, the documents confirmed it. 12 feet of that pool was built inside my property line, which meant the HOA had been trespassing for years. I called my attorney. He nearly laughed when I told him. "They're in violation of property encroachment laws," he said. "You could file a claim or charge rent." "Rent?" I asked, smiling. "Now that's an idea." We drafted a formal notice to the HOA board citing trespass encroachment and unlawful restriction of property access. I didn't have to threaten anything, the letter did the talking. That night, though, sitting on my porch, I started to second-guess everything. Was I really going to turn this into a legal fight over a pool? I'd seen enough pointless conflicts in my career. Part of me wanted to just let it go. Maybe I should be the bigger person. Maybe I was overreacting. But then I remembered the look on Brandon's face, the smugness, the entitlement, and Karen's patronizing smile. The way they treated me like some stranger trespassing on land I'd worked my whole life to afford. That flipped a switch in me. I wasn't doing this for pride. I was doing it for respect. For every quiet homeowner who'd ever been pushed around by an overreaching HOA. So I went all in. A week later, Karen called an emergency board meeting. All members required, the notice said. I showed up in a pressed suit folder in hand. The room went silent when I walked in. Karen tried to start with that same fake smile. "Officer Mitchell, we've received your complaint." "Not a complaint," I interrupted. "Just a clarification of property rights." Her vice president, Ron, an older gentleman with a calm demeanor, flipped through my paperwork. His eyebrows shot up. "Karen," he said slowly, "these are official county records. It looks like he's right." "There must be a mistake," she snapped, but her voice wavered. "There's no mistake," I said. "The HOA's pool extends 12 feet into my property. That means you owe me compensation for years of use." "You can't just demand money," she blurted out. "I could," I said, "but I'm not. I just want my access restored and a formal apology for being harassed on my own land." The room went quiet. Karen looked around, waiting for backup, but no one met her eyes. Finally, Ron sighed. "We'll vote on it." The vote was 6-1 in my favor. Guess who the one no was? A week later, I got another letter from the HOA, this one printed on fancy stationery and filled with apologies. They formally recognized Officer Mitchell's property rights and restored full pool access privileges. But here's the kicker. My attorney had already filed the claim before the meeting. So even though they apologized, the process was already in motion. A month later, the HOA quietly settled for $18,000 to resolve the boundary matter amicably. When the check arrived, I didn't cash it right away. I just walked out to the pool, sat down on one of my chairs because technically it was mine, and sipped a lemonade while Brandon glared at me from across the deck. "Still want me to leave?" I asked with a grin. He muttered something under his breath and walked away. Karen avoided me completely after that. She'd turn the other way whenever she saw me or pretend to check her phone like I didn't exist. Word spread fast around the neighborhood. No one messed with the sheriff anymore. Neighbors I barely knew came up to thank me. Finally, someone stood up to her. One said, "About time," another added. I didn't do it for applause. Honestly, I never meant to start a war. I just wanted to be treated with respect. But sometimes, standing your ground is the only way to draw a real boundary, literally and figuratively. A few months later, a notice went out. HOA President Karen Dalton resigns for personal reasons. Yeah, I bet. Now every weekend I sit by that same pool. The water glistens, kids laugh, and for once it's peaceful. I think back to that day, the shouting, the arrogance, the letter telling me I didn't belong, and I smile, because the truth is, I didn't win by yelling louder or flexing my badge. I won by staying patient, by letting the law speak for me. Karen and her son acted out of entitlement. I acted out of principle. And in the end, patience always beats confrontation. So if anyone ever tries to push you off your own property, remember this: confidence, patience, and proof. That's all you need. Sometimes the best revenge is just letting the law do the talking.